Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful passage from the Gospel of Matthew. It's all about a dramatic showdown, 4 very different ways people reacted, and a choice that, as we'll see, is pretty much impossible to avoid. So, let's start with something that feels, super relevant right now. In a world that feels so divided, staying in the middle can seem like the safest, smartest place to be. But what if that's just an illusion? This ancient story argues that it absolutely is. The material we're looking at today unpacks this one pivotal moment in the book of Matthew. It all centers on a single, dramatic event that basically draws a line in the sand, forcing everybody who saw it to show where they really stood. Okay, so here's the setup. A man who is described as being both blind and mute, he's in a really bad way, is brought to Jesus. And in just a moment, he's completely healed. He can see, he can speak. This one incredible act kicks off everything that's about to happen. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. You have one event, one miracle, but 2 totally opposite reactions. On one side, you've got the public, the everyday people, who are just astonished. They're wondering, wow, could this be the guy we've been waiting for? But on the other side, you've got the religious leaders, and they have a much, much darker take on it. Let's start with that first group, the Pharisees. It's really important to get who these guys were. They weren't just some random critics. As it says here, they were the top religious leaders, the Bible experts of their day. What they said mattered a lot. And this is their big problem. See, the Pharisees knew the scriptures backwards and forwards. They knew all the prophecies, but when a miracle happens that looks exactly like what those prophecies described, they just refused to see it. Instead, they accused Jesus of using evil powers, pretty much slamming the doors shut on the very kingdom he was offering them. Okay, now let's pivot to the second group, the crowd. These are just the regular folks, and they're caught right in the middle of this whole drama, trying to figure out what on earth they just witnessed. Look and just picture them, right? They're amazed by the healing, but now they're hearing 2 completely different explanations for it. They're basically standing at a fork in the road, totally confused and not sure who to believe. And this is when Jesus, seeing their confusion, says one of the most challenging things in the entire book. He just completely takes away the option of staying on the fence. He says, look, you're either with me, gathering, or you're against me, scattering. There's no third option. So the big takeaway for the crowd is that just waiting and seeing isn't a safe position. The source material uses this great metaphor. If you're standing in the middle of the road, you're not neutral. You're just going to get run over. You have to pick a direction. And that brings us to our third group, the disciples. Now, these guys have already made a choice to follow Jesus. But what we see here is that following isn't a one-time thing. It's something you have to keep choosing. For the disciples, the challenge was totally different. As the source emphasizes, following Jesus wasn't just about agreeing with his ideas. It was about loyalty, and it had to be undivided. It really gets to that core idea that you can't serve 2 masters. You have to decide who's actually in charge of your life. So their real test isn't about that initial decision. It's about how they live it out every single day. It's the challenge of going from just a simple belief in Jesus to a deep, real, authentic faithfulness to Jesus. But that leads us to a fascinating 4th group, the people who actively try not to choose at all. The source calls them the intentionally neutral, and their position is really worth thinking about. For a lot of us, being neutral feels like the right thing to do. It seems balanced, objective, and, safe. This image of the scales kind of captures that idea perfectly. It just looks like the most reasonable position you can take. But here's the twist. The central argument being made here is that doing nothing is actually doing something. In this way of thinking, refusing to choose a new king is, in itself, a choice to let the old king stay on the throne. It's a passive vote for the status quo. And this really gets to the core of it all. In the language of kingdoms, there's no such thing as neutral territory. Every single piece of ground belongs to a ruler. So your loyalty, whether you say it out loud or not, always belongs to one kingdom or another. Okay, so let's tie all of this together. We've seen how this one powerful event forced 4 different groups of people to face a very specific and unavoidable choice. It breaks down like this. You had the Pharisees, who chose outright rejection, and their challenge was that their knowledge got in the way of the truth. Then you had the public, who hesitated, and they were challenged with the fact that they just had to pick a side. You had the disciples, who were already following, but their challenge was to keep that loyalty real and genuine. And finally, you had the neutral group, defined by their inaction, who were challenged by the hard truth that there really is no middle ground. And so, this ancient story leaves all of us with a very modern and very personal question. Faced with all the competing claims on our loyalty today, the final question isn't about which of these four groups you'd be in. The question is, which kingdom do you choose?